they all sent them, they gave away awards, right? And it was award, cash bonuses, all this other cool stuff. And here I am, Grady. I put my hands in my pocket. I tucked down. I like couldn't even look at anybody. And I was like, I told myself, I am broke and I never ever want to feel like this ever again. And that decision that I made in 2018 led me to where I'm at right now.
All right, hello everybody. Grady Paulson here, the America Agency. Beyond excited to have Dean Pavlic on with us. Dean has been someone that I have looked up to from his production standpoint and also gym discipline since the day that I first met him and saw him and tried to put my arms around him and couldn't even get my fingers together. And but all around, just Dean exemplifies consistency and discipline. And I think that, I don't want to steal words out of his training, but I'm sure those might be part of it, that this is a man who had made a decision to make it happen, right? He didn't get in this business and wade through the waters and say it was hard and go back to something else and try this other thing and shiny object syndrome. Dean's hit Hall of Fame, I believe 5 times in both life insurance and annuities. He won a car last year, which was incredible. I remember crying in the audience watching my buddy win a freaking car on stage. It was one of the coolest things. Hopefully you can share that with us. But Dean is as sweet as he looks, he is a savage, and a savage in a sense of his commitment to the business, his commitment to his craft, his team, his clients, and what he's trying to do. But he also he's a smooth operator, and you don't put up these numbers of production if you don't know how to navigate clients, help them feel comfortable, help keep business on the books. You can be tough and you can be a bully for a little bit, but those clients can call Americo and just cancel, and that's not going to work. So you've got to find a way to build a bridge between who you are and who your clients want you to be. And I think that's something that Dean has done at an exceptional level. And so it's a long time coming, but without further ado, Dean Pavlic, great to have you on, brother. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing wonderful, Grady. I really appreciate that introduction, man. That's like as far as anybody's ever taken it for me. That's great.
It's well deserved. I mean, you put up the numbers you put up. You behave the way, like, we talk about in leadership, right? It's like if your
Right.
team did today what you did, would your business have grown, right? If you are you an example of how you want your team to do and behave? And I talk about even with clients. If you're selling insurance, are you treating your clients the way that you would want to be treated if this same sort of sales interaction was happening? And I believe you check all those boxes. And so it's just, I'm stoked to have you on and let you get going and share this what you do to hit everything. But more than anything, I would love if you would, color us in. What's the backstory? How did you find your way to insurance? And
Yeah.
did you pop out the womb as just the sales Jedi, or was did you struggle like the rest of us?
No, it's crazy that, this business really dropped in my lap back in 2017. And I used to work in a sports supplement nutrition company, and I used to travel all over the place and basically just, try to push pre-workouts, protein powders, you name it, amino acids into retail consumers and all across the country. And a mutual acquaintance at that point in time was doing this business because his spouse was a sponsored athlete by our company. And I kind of like always question him, like, his wife is like a stay-at-home mom. She gets to do bodybuilding, and what does he do for a living? I always question that because he's always he was the provider. And essentially, he told me about the business.
Okay.
And Grady, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I heard about him, like, what kind of pyramid scheme is this? Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, what?
And when I learned about it, how the actual process worked with the lead system, calling the client that requested the information, I'm like, oh, well, let's see what it's all about. And he told me, he said, hey, just get your insurance license. You got nothing to lose. I was like, cool, I can do that. Gave me the course. Grady, I'll tell you, man, I sucked. I failed the license exam 3 times. And when I failed it the 3rd time, in the state of Virginia, you have to wait for 30 days before you can go again. So I sat out the 30 days. and I contemplated life. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I'll take it again, but I don't know what's gonna happen with it. In that time frame, when I passed my exam, was right before the day before Christmas in 2017 is when I got my license. And then when I, went through the processing, through onboarding and everything, I sat on that license for about, I don't know, 6 weeks. In that 6 week time frame, Grady, my job was declining where I was working, and at the same time, I had a repossessed vehicle. I lost everything. And convention was coming up in Dallas in 2018. And my mentor he said, hey, you know what? I need you to go to this meeting. It's something you can't afford to miss. I'm like, I have no money. I got like $400 to my name. I'm like, I can't go. He goes, why don't you go sell a policy? I was like, well, to who? He goes, well, you could sell one on your girlfriend. I was like, okay. And at the same time, she was like, yeah, I could use a life insurance policy. So I wrote her an Americo CBO 100, and I got paid in 2 days. I was like, oh, this is not a pyramid scheme. This actually works. So I got like a $900 deposit, and I was like, cool, I can go to Dallas. So I went to Dallas. I booked a flight, and he actually had arranged a time frame to meet with a new agent down there to share a room with, so I don't have to pay everything out of my own pocket. Well, that agent bailed out, and I had nowhere to stay. And the whole time, Grady, so I flew from Virginia to Atlanta, and I had a layover for like an hour and a half. And the whole time, Grady, I'm sweating bullets. I had no idea, like, this is all crumbling all over again on me. And I'm walking down like to the next term. I'm looking at my phone. I'm looking at my bank account. And I'm like, here we go. I have another $400 for the next 2 weeks to last me. And I really don't want to go to this conference. I was literally looking at rental cars to drive back 8 hours. I did not want to get on a layover flight. I called him. He's like, you can't afford, you're halfway there, just make the trip. I was like, let me call my dad. Because my dad was like my mentor. I watched him, through a lot of adversity in life, and he built a business, retired out of it. And he goes, just do the damn thing. You're already there. Like, you're going to be great at it. I was like, that's the confirmation I needed. I went to Dallas, and I was like mind blown with the amount of people that were there at that time. I mean, we were at a conference of like 900 agents. I don't know. Were you there in 2018?
That was my first one.
Mine as well. There you go.
Man, I was like, yeah, I sat in the back on the floor, man.
Dude, I was in the far back when I sat there, and it's like, wait a second, I'm sitting here and I'm lost. But I look at all these people, and I'm like, there's people going across stage. Andrew Taylor, Shawn Mike was there, Mark Mead, Frank Euphemia, and all these other guys. And I'm like, these guys are nothing special. Like, what are they doing and I'm not doing, right? And I remember that same evening, it was a Friday night. The group that I was part with at that time, they all sat in the room. They gave away awards, right? And it was award cash bonuses of all this other cool stuff. And here I am, Grady. I put my hands in my pocket. I tucked down. I like couldn't even look at anybody. And I was like, I told myself, I am broke, and I never ever want to feel like this ever again. And that decision that I made in 2018 led me to where I'm at right now. Because every step I took from that point on, I leveraged the knowledge that was given at that conference to be able to absorb and build confidence within me to say, I can do the same exact thing these guys and gals are doing. They're nobody. I'm nobody. We all relate. They started with nothing. They made something out of them. And what I did was I went back 2 weeks later. I quit my job. I went out, and I wrote like 4 policies that paid out my first week, and I never looked back. And then I started like evolving into business. And then 2018, I did it part-time. I didn't really grow crazy with it, Grady. I had 189 families on books for that year. And then 2019, when we went to the Vegas convention, the slogan was all in. I was like, cool, I want to be all in. And then I went from 189 to 325. Then in my third year, I went from 325 to 428. Then in my fourth year, I let go on producing, but I started building. So I had a pretty big agency at that time. And then 2022, I did 458. Then 2023, last year, I did 733.
Oh,
Yeah, like I jumped up tremendously. And then this year, I'm gonna probably finish right around 1,000. So
oh,
it's
gold jacket.
crazy, right? But it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a overnight success. I didn't know anything about the business. I didn't know anything about life insurance. I used to work at an insurance company as a total loss processor at State Farm, but I never worked in the life insurance space, and I never had a license for it. So I started with like no knowledge. But what happened was I leveraged the system that was already there. And you know as well as I do, we were right there at the same time. The resources were very minimal,
Very.
but they worked. Everything worked in our favor, and we learned from that. And that's why we as a company evolved so much throughout those last 6-7 years because of the failures that we had early on as a whole. And now with everything that we have at our platform is really tremendous. But yeah, it all started with that 2018 convention, man. That was a life-changing moment for me.
That's awesome. It's such a thing that you hear in people that achieve success, right? Is make a decision or life's defining moment, right? For me, it was very similar. I was holding my third child, and I was like stressed out beyond belief. And I already had my license. I was talking to Andrew a bunch, and he's like, dude, just come to, it was, for me, it was go to convention, get some leads, come to convention. I went to convention. I sat there and I looked around and I learned, when you're booking appointments, 6:15 or 6:45, I learned about aged leads. I learned how to tie things down better. And the things you learn at a convention and have access to these other people. And it's not like they're deities or immortals or gods. They're just other people that have eaten more crap than we have yet, right? That's all. And they're
Right.
like, hey, we know how to eat. We're eating better over here because we know how we've navigated all the Golden Corral buffet lines, and now we're over here, having some steak. I don't know, no disrespect to Golden Corral if that's your spot, but
No,
but it
definitely
but
not my
it
spot.
but that's the truth, is that you made that decision. You sat in the room. And so for everyone that's watching, like, where are you at in life? Where are you at in this path you have towards your future? Is, when is that time for you? Could it be today on this call? Could it be next week? Have you already had it and you're already like, you're tearing up? I mean, but for you anyone out there, you've got to make that decision. So dude, I love hearing, and it's so, perfect that we went to the exact same event and that happened for both of us. It's awesome, bro. So, okay. So you get rolling and knocking out, let's speed up to last year, to nearly double and go from 400 to 700 plus. And now this year to have a goal to do over 1,000 families, because we're going to start saying it. It's not going to be near, it's not going to be almost, it's going to be 1,000 families.
Right.
What has changed what has changed?
What's changed is I started working a lot more in a smarter way of investing and back into my business on a lead strategy. I know that if I wanted to excel to a certain level, I have to do something, and most people are afraid of doing it, which is doubling down on the investment and getting the return on it and sacrificing the time to get there. But what I also learned, Grady, was I started perfecting, annuities a lot more to my advantage, because I always did annuities since day one. I wasn't a stranger to it. I was introduced my first 3 months into the annuity game when I came here, and I always was a big believer in it. I just started getting a lot better at asking more questions when I met with my clientele. And I'm the crazy one. I will say it. I'm still doing everything 100% face to face. I still drive. I still go to meetings. I don't do telesales. I tried it, Grady. I have ADHD. I can't sit still. Kudos to you guys. I can sit still at an office for 12 hours. I can't do it. I do it occasionally with like policy reviews and other things I can't get to, but I still run out. I'll drive up to 2 hours and back and meet with folks. And I love that side of that business because it gives me the flexibility and freedom to control it in my way that I want to do it. And it also allowed me to really be more direct with people over the last 6 years by asking questions, because we learned everything face to face, right? So to me, it was all about strategizing. How can I be profitable in a much more skillful way versus more of a grinding sort of way, right? Like, do I have to work 7 hours, days a week? No, I can do it smarter, but I still put time in, like driving, running 8 to 9 appointments face to face on a daily basis, having 2 office days, doing recruiting, doing this, doing that. So I'm still busy throughout the entire week, with the exception of Sunday, unless I have to. I like to have at least one day off to kind of wind down a little bit. And but I got really, really good at strategizing the financial worksheet with my clientele. And when that came together, I was able to help people in a much more meaningful way. In my very first year, Grady, it was all about transactional. How fast can I get paid? I looked at it as a dollar symbol to get paid fast because I was already struggling, until I met an individual who happened to be a client lead that I met because I door knocked him and he was crying and he had told me his wife had just died. And that's when I realized how meaningful it is what we do. So I had to switch my perspective on this business. It wasn't about me anymore. This was way bigger than me. And when I learned that, Grady, I was able to dive deep into their problems. I had a call with Marissa's team last week, and I talked about the flesh wound, right? Every time I call a lead, I understand that there's a flesh wound associated because everybody has an emotional connection to filling out a request. It's not a fun thing to fill out. Nobody wakes up in a random morning and say, hey, today's a phenomenal day to buy some life insurance because it's fun. Nobody does that. There's an emotional flesh wound that needs to be patched. So when I meet with folks, Grady, and for those who are doing it virtually, your job is to cut that wound wide open until it's to the point of death, meaning they're bleeding out completely. I have to identify what the root of the problem is, why they requested something like this in the first place. And I did that by understanding what their income losses were going to be to the surviving household member. If both of them were to be gone, how many kids' lives are at stake, and who's going to be the person moving forward to continue raising those children if mom and dad happen to die tragically in a car accident? How is that going to impact their life moving forward on the lifestyle that they've created together? And when I asked a lot of those questions, they literally just kind of sold themselves to me. They knew I had a solution. So I stopped using the word products. I don't tell them, hey, this product is going to prevent this. No, Bob, this solution is going to help prevent this catastrophe because it's a solution to the problem we just identified. And same thing when it comes to asking financial questions pertaining, IRAs, annuity money. What does that look like? Because we have a solution for it. So I use word strategies in a different manner to approach clientele in different ways so it makes more sense to them, not to me. Because I know if I can help somebody, I'm okay. I'm financially going to be okay because I will get rewarded on the back end of it. And I'm not going to stress if the person's not going to help buy anything or I can't help them because I have other people that need my assistance. So I had to learn how to take the emotion out of it, Grady, because in my first 2 years, I was very emotional to the no's, the rejections, the objections. Now I'm bloody cold blooded. If somebody gives me an objection, I'm cold blooded to it. I don't hear it. I just like say something to try to, take them off the edge on that. So you have to really learn to develop a certain communication skills, but it all comes with asking really good questions at the table or over the phone, because sales is all about asking, not about telling. The moment you start telling is the moment you lose the clientele. The moment you start asking who, how, when, what, why, that's when everything opens up. We start telling them this, that, do this, that, boom, you lose. So that's the biggest thing that changed in the last several years with my business, Grady. I became so much more intentional in that aspect.
That's awesome. I mean, that's such, going back to just the top of it is going in home, right? For any agent out there that's struggling in this new grandiose world where, everyone just sits in their underwear and sells and makes money from their home, from their guest room, is I don't want to say a pipe dream, but it's a great grandiose idea, right? But this business was built face to face, belly to belly, person to person. And the reality, though, is this is an emotional sale, right? We're talking about death. God forbid you weren't here. God forbid something happened to you yesterday, Bob. What would Mary do today? Bob starts speaking. Hold on, Bob, you're dead. we're talking to Mary. Mary, what would you do today? Right? That classic way we approach in the home. And if any of you guys are struggling to get sales, and especially struggling virtually because it is harder than it is in person, book some in-person appointments. Go sit across from some people. They can't hang up on you. They can't pick you up and throw you out the door. You know, as long as you're kind and polite and you're trying to find a solution. I love that. We don't have a product to offer. We have a solution to offer, and dig into what is the reason they filled that out. You focus on the flesh wound in the lead, emotional flesh wound, cut it open and until they're almost dying, just pushing on it, because then, you know, there's the cancellations are significantly near, you probably, I bet you're 90+% persistency because you're so passionate about finding out their true bleeding pain. That I don't want my wife and kids to lose the home or be financially stressed if God forbid something happened to me. So let's put a small bill in place that I can pay monthly that guarantees that. How do we compress that time? You do that through having conversation of what would it look like, Grady, if you died yesterday? And I mean, I should let you do this, but I'm just so fired up on how I miss it. Oh man, I get on these Zoom rooms and I'm like, I'm so happy you guys are making sales. But there's so much more joy in like seeing the world and driving around and getting in homes and hearing people and shaking hands and eating pie and drinking some tea and, you know, getting a dirty glass and you're like, oh, I'm not that thirsty anymore, you know, and all the fun
Right.
in the home.
That's the thing, man. It's like for me, I enjoy that. You know, sure. Can I sit down and do telesales a couple of days a week? Absolutely. Yeah, like it's your schedule. But for me, I like that interaction because it creates that importance. It creates that trust factor a lot more. And I've ran into people's appointments before where they did it over the phone. I'm like, why did you get this? Like, this looks terrible. Like, are you sick? You have a 2-year waiting period or your death benefit? You're in good health. Why didn't you get this? Because I understood it, like it was a transactional sale for that agent that did it over the phone really, really quickly. And there's a way to also solidify those sales over the phone. I've learned that as well. And there's a couple of tricks I'm going to give you guys here today that could help you guys out. I mean, one of the first things you definitely want to do is set expectations and tell them what your process looks like. Like, great, if I call you today and say, hey, you want to learn about what policies available to you. Perfect, Grady. Here's what my process looks like, just so you understand that we're both on the same page. I'm going to spend 2 minutes to talk about your income because I need to evaluate the losses that are at stake if you happen to die tomorrow. The second thing we're going to really dive deep into is your medical condition, current and past, and as well as your current and past medications, because the insurance carrier will need to know what can they accept based on your risk level, right? And then the third, we're going to look at what options could be available and see which carrier would say, hey, well, come on in. The door's wide open. We'll accept you. Come sit down with us, right? And there's what the insurance company is going to look for, Grady, when we send a request over to them. They're going to ask for your social to pull your full medical data. They need to know that they're talking to you as you, Bob, or Grady Polson is Grady Polson, not Grady Johnson, right? They need to make sure this is you that they're talking about. The second thing they're going to ask is your driver's license, because they need to identify, hey, you're not recklessly driving, you're not having any DUIs on your records, and you don't out there trying to run over curbs and stomp in people's property and mess up their stuff by being reckless, right? And then the third thing they're going to want to find out is how are you going to provide your payment to them through a checking or savings account? Because they don't partner with all the banks, so they need to validate that you have a legitimate account that you're going to be using to make your premiums. Now, Grady, before we continue, do you have any questions about my process? Then you shut up. If they talk, they say no, you just avoided 99% of objections that come thrown at you. If they say yes, address the concern. Well, why? Well, I don't feel too confident giving them, you know, my banking information, whatever. Address it. Edify what it is that you're doing all over again. But when you set those expectations, it's going to eliminate the chances of you getting hung up on or giving you the objection while you're filling out the application with them. But the first thing you should always do is send your credentials over the phone. It's so important.
Can you book the appointment? You're doing that?
What's that?
Can you book the appointment, or if you're selling virtually?
If you're just selling virtually, for example, because we have a lot of agents that are probably going to see this and they're going to sell it virtually, but send your national producer number over, a copy of an ID with a driver's license picture or something to identify you. If you have a social media platform that's pretty clean, send that over to them. They want to know that you're a real person. They want to know that it's you that they're talking to. And here's the best part, Grady, how to make sure your policy stays on the books. You have to say everything goes through, approved. They've got a policy. They're happy. You got paid. Take out your phone. We all have cell phones. go on record and record a 30-second selfie video and say, hey, Grady, this is Dean. I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to help you this afternoon, this evening. I just want to let you know I'm a real person just like you are. Please make sure you save my number. If you have any questions, concerns, call me back. Send. Do you know how powerful that is? And people don't do that.
It's great.
That is a personal touch. That's like me sitting face to face with you almost.
You could do it one. I mean, you could do a custom one. Hey, Betty.
Yeah.
Or you could just do a generic one. Hey, it was so good meeting with you. Like, could do a generic one, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send.
Done.
You know, and then you're just, I mean, dude, the personal touch. I mean, I'm thinking of some virtual producers I know that crank that it just added to your process. It takes an extra 5 seconds and just
10
just
seconds.
sit in my office. Hey, I'm just thinking about you. Just had a great conversation. We're getting everything wrong. Just want to shoot. Dude, no one sends. Dean, that was worth showing up, guys. Drop a V in the chat below for a video, because that is a brilliant move that when we're in a very, very virtual world right now.
No one does that because it's such an easy thing to do. We all love cell phones. We spend so much time on social media. What if you took an extra 10 seconds of your time or 30 seconds of your time at the end of the conversation to process that and send it to them? Don't just rush the deal and go to the next one. The deals are always going to be there, but if you take your time with them, guess what? You're going to uncover a much more valuable thing with that client moving forward. Now you have a client. Now you can have referrals. Now you have other things you can help them out in the future. Who knows for what? So make sure you're taking care of what's the right way to do it. And that's one of the things that when I did telesales for a little bit, a couple of years ago, I did at every appointment. And those policies are still in the books today, Grady. To this day.
That's awesome.